Hello and welcome to The Agenda on Hughes of the World. Me, Graham Hughes, and I'm joined as always by Phil Moorhouse. How you doing, Phil?
Hello. Yes, I'm fine.
Did you get a good night's sleep last night?
I did. Yeah, my sleep was fine.
We
Why would
stayed
I
up till
wait for
2 and there
election results that aren't actually
yeah, well,
coming in because we're
exactly,
not counting
exactly.
anything?
So in the last couple of moments, it looks like Wakefield, there was a couple of seats in Wakefield going, and Refuck got both of them. Refuck got 1,900 votes, and Labour got 1,300 and 1,200 respectively. So there were two seats up for grabs, and Refuck got them both, which is a bit shit.
Yep.
Wakefield, obviously a Labour stronghold. But it's been quite remarkable at just how much the vote for Refuck has correlated with the vote for Brexit.
Well, it's not surprising at all, is it? But
No.
it's not even that it's directly related to Brexit, because the Brexit vote itself correlated according to people who felt a sense of decline in their lives or their communities.
Yeah.
And this is why there was, I did a video earlier this last week or this week or whatever, where I was again pitching, why don't Labour take a leaf out of Roosevelt's book and just basically create jobs, right? Create jobs.
Yeah.
And then I read this thing, it's quite interesting. So, actual member of the government, incredibly junior, and but nonetheless a Starmer ally in government, who's saying that what Labour need to do is create jobs. Specifically, he said in like these sort of former industrial towns. But what I would say is, so yeah, it makes sense to do it in certain areas. So former industrial towns and coastal towns,
Yeah.
because these are the places that have experienced decline since the 20th century. They basically lost their main economies.
Yeah.
And what can a government do about that? It can try and encourage businesses to invest in those areas, but it's really hard to do it. But if you just created jobs, and these places are spawning pools for Reform UK.
Yeah.
If Labour had come in 2024 and immediately got to work on regenerating those areas, not just creating the conditions for private investment there, which may come or may not come and will always come slowly. If they'd have just gone to town on it, then Reform UK would have been cut off at the knees.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah,
Then looking at what Labour have done, because
yeah.
let's not forget they came in with the biggest majority they've ever had,
No,
and they could
but it
have
was it
really
was
gone
still
around
historically high.
kicking. They could have kicked ass from the
Yeah,
moment from the get go.
yeah,
And I think we were talking this morning about how much the visceral hatred of Starmer,
yeah.
especially from people on the left, is quite remarkable and quite
It is.
startling, because people like proper fucking hate him
Yeah,
more than they seem to hate Farage or people who are actually fascist.
I know.
And I think a lot of that is people feel betrayed. Where
Yeah.
they never expected anything good of Trump or Farage or
Mm.
Putin. But when it comes to um, Starmer, that they're
Yeah.
like, but you were supposed to be the good guys,
Yeah, I know.
You were supposed to deliver us from the
Yeah.
Sith,
Yes.
not deliver us
Yeah.
the Sith.
Well, this is it. There was some interesting. I wish I could see the research myself, but it's not. I don't think it's been published, but it's been reported on the Guardian. It has been shared with Labour, including some key Labour figures like Rayner and so on. And it made a really good point about why is it that people really hate Starmer. And it gave the example, and I'm sure there's many more things in the research, but I can't see the research itself. I can only see what's reported on it. It gave the example of the Iran war. So, on the Iran war,
Yeah,
Keir Starmer is aligned with most progressive voters, but it's not even helping to bridge between himself and those voters. And the reason it says is this. So his reasons why he's against the Iran war are, and they're all perfectly valid, and they're all perfectly sensible. One, there's no legal basis for it, right? Two, it's like technical issues. So remember, Starmer said, the Americans didn't seem to have a viable plan for it, and they'd have no
yeah,
exit strategy or anything like this. And what this research is saying, what these voters, they agree. So these voters agree with Starmer on the main conclusion, but
yeah,
not the thinking. What these voters wanted was a values-based decision. And
yeah,
what Starmer's is doing the technocrats. Well, I'm making this decision because of these very technical reasons, which,
yeah,
but what people want This is me
some
reading into it
emotion,
now.
Phil. They want some
I know,
emotion.
yeah, they do. Yeah,
People
that's
vote
ultimately
with their
it.
hearts. I mean, this isn't hard. Like, he looks at the stats, he looks at the equations, but he doesn't look at what drives people. The vast majority of people who don't give a fuck about politics, who only vote once every couple of years.
He doesn't look at the stats because the stats will tell him that. He's not listening to any data scientists at all. There were two things.
We don't even have McSweeney to blame now.
Well, we do, because who's he listening to? The people McSweeney hired. But it doesn't matter. I never blamed McSweeney ultimately in the first place. I blamed Starmer. He hired him at the end of the day. I praised the fact that Starmer recognised he is not himself a political beast and so needed someone who was to rely on. He just powerfully picked the wrong person. And I would have blamed McSweeney in the early days of failure if it weren't for the fact that he stuck by him when he was clearly cocking everything up.
Yeah.
Labour made two massive mistakes. You can point to any number of mistakes they made because they keep making them. I can point to mistakes he made just last week because he's not improving. But ultimately, there were two big ones in 2024. I was talking in my earlier stream. The first was the winter fuel policy, which even their own internal polling told them that is what cost them their lead in the polls.
Yeah.
But what was the core issue of it? It wasn't just a bad policy. It was the fact I said at the time when they announced it, I said, well, I'm no fan of universal benefits. I'm, means testing, I'm more than happy with. I wasn't entirely convinced by the bar they were setting, but I said at the time, I'm assuming they've done their homework on this because this sounds like I don't remember what word I used at the time, but the usual vernacular for any Yes Minister fans is courageous.
Yeah.
It's always said in Yes Minister, a controversial policy is one that costs you votes. A courageous one is one that costs you the election. And this sounded like a bloody brave policy to take money off pensioners.
Is that wise?
Exactly. To take money off pensioners. So that was the fact. So what we learned from that is they hadn't done their homework because it backfired badly. Yeah. So they can't possibly have done their homework. So that told me they were no longer listening to data science. They were no longer testing these things out before announcing them. Yeah. And then the second big mistake. So I will point out when after the election, their poll rating went up. Starmer's poll rating went up. Labour's poll rating went up because we had 3 weeks of mass positivity. Then we had the riots, not their fault. But then when we came back, it was relentless negativity on the economy.
Yeah.
What the hell? And the thing is, and where they went wrong with
Marvin the paranoid android comes out.
They had this idea, and we know this now because they've basically admitted to it since, but they had this idea that the public accepted that things would get worse before they get better. They were on this like downward slope, and we're going to carry on going down a bit, and then we're going to do that and then go up, right? No, I could have told them at the time the public were not thinking that because after the election, More in Common did a lot of really very detailed and very sensible research. They asked a lot of really key questions. And one of the things that came out of that research, that post-election research, was the public, including Labour voters, were not willing to give Labour time.
Yeah.
They expected not results next Tuesday, but they expected results the following year. Yeah. They were going to give them till 2026.
We have
2025. Sorry, 2025. Yeah. So there were two massive mistakes that could only be made because they were no longer analysing. They were no longer really communicating with the public. It showed you that they were no longer surveying the public and then getting data scientists to analyse the responses. That wasn't happening. Because they couldn't have made those two mistakes. It was impossible. Like, even if they'd have just read the More in Common research, they couldn't have made that second mistake. Yeah. And yet they did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, famously, Best Britain ran a poll in the summer of 2019 to say that if there was an election, that the Labour would get their arses handed to them and Boris Johnson would get a massive majority of 80. And he got a massive majority of 80. But Labour were like, that can't possibly be true.
Well, I will be fair.
Just hold that thought for a second because we have got 2 super chats I haven't addressed. Thank you so much to Goose Springsteen for both of them. The first one says, while Labour have changed the rules to supplementary voting going forward, any mayoral election this year will still be first past the post. big risk to potentially lose a major metro mayor if Burnham stands as an MP.
Yeah.
Very true. And then Goose, again, another £10 super chat, thank you. Worth being aware of the way that Refuck and Farage can motivate low propensity voters. If you fight the next general election on the first past the post about Brexit, I think there's a chance it will backfire with a three-way split on the left. I agree.
No,
I think the voting system does need to be changed.
I think well, no, we do, but I don't think. If anything, right, there is already a many-way split on the left. That is now, and that's baked in. That's not going away. This isn't like 2019. If I take you back to 2019. I will just actually use someone to hold that for. I will just say, to be fair to Corbyn at the time, he didn't allow Boris Johnson the election to begin with. He was standing firm. It was when he got bounced into it by SNP and Libs. He can still take the blame because on the day, the Liberal Democrats and SNP were willing to vote against the motion because they didn't get the 16 vote to go through. So that then was Corbyn's fault. But to begin with, it wasn't. He was actually denying Johnson. But either way, if we go back to another lesson from 2019, which isn't applicable today because it's completely different. During that summer, so this was early summer, it didn't last that long, but we had the Brexit Party and Lib Dems in the top two places and Conservatives and Labour in third and fourth. And but that was quite transitional. That, come the election, it swung back to the polls. But that's because that election was quite polar as well. What Labour needs to do is polarise the vote.
Yeah.
They must. So actually, something like Brexit is ideal for doing that. Now, that's not to say that it is like a silver bullet, but at this point, it's more entrenched. It's more, like... the Reform UK are clearly not just going to they're just not going to randomly collapse. There's all sorts of things that will cause them trouble, but they're not going to collapse unless, even if Nigel Farage does, I don't think they will. And the Green Party are not going to go away. So you have to polarise the vote along a single, what's considered really important issue, which will reduce that split on the left. Or liberal vote, however you want to look at it.
Yeah. Well, it would be, I suppose. But like at the same time, I was just going to say, sorry, just to change the subject slightly, we should be getting the first results in from Wales pretty soon. But already the former, the First Minister in Wales has, is it Deputy? No, who is it? No, the First Minister has admitted that Labour are not going to win. They won't. Well, they won't form the next Welsh government.
Certainly not as the senior partner. No.
Yeah. So what might happen is a little switcheroo, where because Labour were working with Plaid Cymru, weren't they, as a junior partner, and it'll be switched around, so they'll be the senior partner. Can you see Refuck getting any particular inroads in Wales, because it has changed the proportion?
I'm worried about it. Yeah. So it is under PR. So basically, the results in Wales are the least likely to be surprising because they're probably just going to go along the lines of the last minute polling. We will wait and see, of course. But I am worried about what happens in Wales because I've always said Welsh politics, I don't really comment on it that much because it just sort of works. It's actually the most functional politics we've got in the UK. Yeah. They got, it's quite sensible. And Reform UK are going to completely sledgehammer it because although they won't get into power, they will win enough seats. They'll win a lot of seats, and that will give them a lot of time in the Senate. And they will use that time to talk absolute toxic shit. And then other parties, if they've got any sense, do you know what? If they've got any sense, the other parties, the other MSs, as soon as Reform UK have finished talking and sit down, will just stand up and go, have you finished? And then they'll carry on with their own thing. But they won't, because they'll feel the need to push back. So they'll waste some of their time as well. So I see a lot of Welsh parliamentary time being wasted because of Reform UK's toxic bullshit, where Wales for me was the last bastion of the UK. There's the odd council where sort of politics works, but it's few and far between. But the Senate was like how parliamentary politics should work, generally speaking.
Yeah. And they've got
that
a
might
much
just
better
go in the bin.
election system now.
They have now, yeah. It's more representative. So you're not going to end up at the very least with a government that doesn't represent the majority of people who at least chose to vote.
Yeah.
Which is the key thing. Whereas at the next election, I mean, obviously there's 3 more years. Who knows what happens to polling? But if it was anything like it is now, you really couldn't call it. I mean, there's political scientists, top political scientists saying you won't be able to call it. You will not be able to call the next election because the vote is so fragmented that with a first past the post system, it will be. In fact, Rob Ford has described it as a crapshoot.
Yeah, if a disaster happens or something epic the week before the election, it could go one way or another.
Oh, can I just point something out here? So Shiny Warmer said, amazing that Phil is still after declaring he hated the Greens in the week before the Gauntlet Intention by-election. I didn't say I hate the Greens because they deliberately lied about the chance of winning. No, I didn't. What I said was that when they won, I said I was very happy with that because I didn't want Reform UK to win, but they also did lie during the election. But then I've never said that Labour don't lie or the Lib Dems don't lie or Reform UK don't lie in campaigns either. So I don't know. Again, you're just showing your tribalism, mate. You're just showing your tribalism.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I dislike any form of lying in politics. I call it out when Labour do it. So of course I'm going to call it out when the Green Party are doing it. I do not like the divisive, toxic behaviour of Zach Polanski. But that's not me saying I hate the Green Party. I've always said I will happily vote Green to stop like Reform UK or I have a hierarchy of people I will vote for. And the Green Party in that hierarchy are second.
But do you think there's like a hierarchy of lying, or do you see all lies as the same? Because I had an argument with someone the other day who was freaking out the fact that they were equivocating the fact that Nigel Farage took £5 million from a crypto funding in Russian laundry in a laundrette keeper in Thailand, and he didn't tell anyone about it. Now that's a crime of omission. He lied about it because you're supposed to declare 12 months. Any kind of substantial, and that is fucking substantial. That's 20 semi-detached houses.
Well, I'll put it in more terms. It's basically it's equivalent to the total amount Reform UK spent on the general election that year.
Yeah.
In fact, that whole year. I don't just mean during the few weeks of the general election. I mean that entire 2024
year.
He
needed it for his security.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, Phil. So someone was equating that to the fact that on Johnny Reynolds's LinkedIn, it said that he worked as a solicitor rather than trainee solicitor. This was in a LinkedIn, so it's a public. It's not a CV. He wasn't going for a job. It's a social media site, and it wasn't filled in by Johnny. It was just a mistake that someone made. Made absolutely no difference. And they're like, no, it's exactly the same.
So what I would say is, one, it's not exactly the same, clearly, but secondly, when it comes to like lies, there is scale. So clearly the scale is completely different. But secondly, I'd also say the motivation matters. Yeah. So if you lie to maliciously harm someone, then that's, that's not right. Was Jonathan Reynolds, even if he was careless, was it malicious? No. Second,
was he going for a job? Was he trying to get a job that involved a CV that he put in, and he lied about having a degree in politics?
The other thing is, were you doing it to try and extract some selfish gain? Again, the answer there is no.
It's like putting like your 5'10" on your Tinder profile when you're actually 5'9". Or actually, even better than that, somebody else doing your Tinder profile for you and putting in the wrong height.
I mean, I would still say someone who aims to be at the top of politics. Someone at the top of politics should take more care, I think. But there is a difference between that and let's say, if you want to put it to something equivalent, Nigel Farage, not just once or twice, but 17 times having failed being caught. Now it's now 18 times, arguably, but definitely at least 17 times, where parliamentary authorities have confirmed that he should have declared a thing and didn't. Yeah. And it's like the first couple of times he says, "Oh, sorry, Mike," because he blames his staff every time. "Oh, it's my PA. Sorry, they mucked it up." And the first couple of times, and I've said this before, I'm happy to say that, but after 17 times, I begin to think that either they're incompetent and you should sack them, or you should be taking more of an interest yourself, or in actual fact, you are actually just stringing this along because you're getting away with it every time.
Yeah. But the thing is, when Johnny Reynolds says, "Oh, but someone else did my LinkedIn profile," and when Angela Maynard says, "This is the legal advice I got about stamp duty for my son's house," and when Rachel Reeves says, "This was the advice that I was given by the letting agency that I work with on my house," they filled in the form incorrectly.
Yeah,
that's like, oh my God, but you should be in control of these people. That is unacceptable. But like, you're right. Farage just uses that excuse time and time again. It wasn't me. Yeah. And Trump uses the same excuse. And one of the things that drives me up the wall, I don't mind the left being held to a higher standard. I think they should be. But at the same time, there's got to be a limit. There has to be some kind of, not these fake false equivalences where it's like, well, no, Farage literally stabbing a puppy to death is clearly the same as someone failing to fill a form incorrectly.
The issue is that, unfortunately, I mean, I'm not saying I'm fine with the left being held to a higher standard. Everyone should be held to a high standard according to their position in office, and it galls me that people at the top of politics have, they get less enforcement of decent standards than someone working as a cleaner in Tesco. And it's, but what I would say is that the right are sort of, although they are also splitting at the seams. I mean, you've got Reform UK and you've got Restore Britain and you've got, I mean, the only reason what might have happened if Restore Britain had a load of candidates out? Because they're, in terms of the national polling, they're doing quite well. I suspect a lot of those will pragmatically vote Reform UK. I wouldn't put any faith in the fact that they'll split the vote. But in theory, at the moment, they represent a split. And obviously, the Conservatives represent a split. And, the Lib Dems are centrist. So they represent some centre-right voters as well as centre-left. Yeah. So the right is sort of split there, but it largely comes pragmatically behind their main champion, whereas the left does not. And you can see this if you look, and I do look, left wing, like sort of what I might call the emotionally driven left wing and right wing social media accounts. The independent ones are independent, so they're not like paid by anyone. They're doing their own thing. And the right wing ones are constantly bashing the wokerati, as we might say, left wing people, liberal people, right? Constantly. Yeah. Whereas you look at a lot of the left wing ones, and they sometimes bash authoritarians or the right wing, but they mostly bash people who agree with them up to 90%, but not quite the 10%. Yeah. And ultimately, when you can say till the cows come home that there's more money in promoting right wing points and stuff like that, and that is true, and it would still win out, but it wouldn't win as much as it is doing if it weren't for the fact that the left are doing their work for them. A lot of the time. We
tend to do that. Before we go on, Goose Springsteen, another couple of super chats here. Thank you very much for the £10 super chat. As a blue Labour type, I'm worried that Mahmood is going to be reshuffled and higher defence spending pushed back further to try and chase the Greens left. If that happens, you might lose more to refuck than now. And a follow-up super chat, thank you. I know my views aren't common here, but even if the Greens are taking more Lab votes, you cannot abandon the blue Labour types out of fear of Polanski.
No, the problem,
it's a balancing act. It definitely is.
The problem with blue Labour is not that they exist, because they do represent a lot, and I mean a lot. They represent actually the biggest block of voters for Labour. But you cannot let them. Like, the problem is where the ideas that they've adopted from them have been unstrategic. They're not working.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that is it. If it was working, I might chunter, but they're not. They're actively chasing away progressive voters, and they're not bringing in any of the sort of what you might call blue Labour aligned voters, because it looks like reform. What I would say, what my observation is this. So Reform UK started to do well a few years ago. The Conservatives started to ape them, stop the boats and all that bollocks, with no plan to stop the boats, by the way. And the Conservatives at that point went from losing some votes to Reform UK to hemorrhaging votes to Reform UK. You can see it in real time. You can track it. Yeah. Now, you could also say circumstances like the rise of the small boats issue will have played a part in that. But nonetheless, the Conservatives tried to move closer to Reform UK's policies, and they just lost more and more and more votes to Reform UK.
Yeah.
Pollsters now believe the Conservatives basically lost all of them. So the core that they've got left of supporters are the ones who are not interested in what Farage has got to sell. So they're probably not going to lose more. So then what happens is Labour, and this didn't start in 2024, this started in 2023, actually, before the election. They start to lean into it just a little bit to begin with. But, you know, they are not at that time losing very many votes to Reform UK at all.
Yeah.
But then as they lean more into it, specifically on immigration and a couple of other culture wars, although they're not adopting the same rhetoric, they are still trying to, it's like they're trying to do their way of doing the same thing, but it is still looking like Reform UK's light. And now Labour are hemorrhaging votes to Reform UK. I just think, like, why would you think doing the same thing in the same way gives a different result? What Labour need to do is lean, and Starmer can't do it now. It's a shame because Starmer is actually very progressive, but he adopted these positions strategically, and they were completely unstrategic. So he's blown it now. He'll just have to live with that. So his successor, I think, needs to lean in heavily.
Yeah.
Not ignore those sort of, but lean in heavily to progressive values. Not necessarily like a purist version of it, but lean heavily into it to get some of those votes back, because it's not working. They're not getting, they're just losing more votes to Reform UK.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were talking about Labour and how much they'll lose. That they're down 338 councillors at the moment. That's after 60 of 136 councils have declared. Obviously, there's going to be some councils where there's more seats to lose. So the first few results we got, places like Chorley, there was only 2 or 3 seats that were up for grabs.
We haven't even got half the results in yet.
Yeah. So
we're going to lose way more.
Yeah.
I would take it's going to 300 odd. I would take losing 500. It's going to be way more.
First of all, do you think there's going to be more than 1,000 seats lost?
Yes,
by the end of all this,
but not necessarily loads more than 1,000. Okay. But I can't really know.
What do you think? There's a certain number that Starmer has to leave straight away because it's just too much?
No. Again, the timing is a complete misnomer. They must replace him with the right leader, and I'm afraid at the moment the only right leader is Andy Burnham.
Yeah.
So the timing has to be what has to happen. This is what I would do. This is how extreme I would be about it if I was a Labour MP and had the ear of a majority of Labour MPs. Yeah. I would say, right, we need to go marching to Starmer. We need to tell him there's 1 or 2 ways we can do this. You're going, we're getting Burnham in, right? And there's 2 ways for us to do it. The first is you work with us to get him in because he's going to be the best for the country and the party.
Yeah.
And if you won't, we will trigger, and there needs to be over half of Labour MPs to make it clear to him his time is done. He won't piss about then. But say to him, what we're going to do, if you dig in here, we are going to trigger a leadership contest as soon as Parliament starts up again. You will lose it. We will back whoever agrees to get Burnham in and then steps down themselves. And that will mean that, yes, just like the Tories, we will have had 3 prime ministers in quick succession. But we think that is less damaging than leaving you in place. And if they did that, he would step down because he's not a dickhead, despite what some people think. He will, if you look at his pre-parliamentary career, it is one of like helping people for decades.
Yeah.
Right. We're not just talking about he had a job like a doctor where you happen to get shitloads of money. I mean, literally giving up his very valuable time for free to be like the McLibel thing, miners. When he went round with Amnesty International, they wouldn't have been paying him millions to persuade governments to drop the death penalty. You know, all of this stuff is service stuff, right?
Yeah.
So he's not malicious. He will, if you tell him, if you make it clear. The problem is that these Labour groups are just clearly not in agreement with each other about what to do.
Yeah.
And that's why he's digging in, because there's no majority that knows what. If they did know what to do, they'd have got rid of him already. If they'd have got rid of him 2 months ago, if they'd have got Andy Burnham in for the Gorton and Denton by-election, if they'd have told him not to block it with the NEC, his allies in the NEC,
Mm.
then the results wouldn't be half as bad. I'm not saying they'd be all of a sudden it'd be brilliant, but all the anti-Starmer vote would be, because what would be the point of it? It wouldn't be a Starmer anymore.
Yeah, I think that the anti-Starmer vote's quite good though, in a way, because I feel like it deflects from hatred of Labour,
well,
on their own as an entity, and it directs all of that to one person who they can get rid of. They can't become a new party. They can't change the name and pretend they're not Labour anymore.
No, of course not.
The more people laser focus on their hatred of Starmer, okay, he's going anyway. So I'm just thinking like now.
It is better that he takes the can. I mean, I said years ago when we actually thought we might get 10 years out of him, I said that, as soon as he's a liability for the party, he needs to go, and he needs to carry the can for whatever caused him to need to go.
Yeah.
He needs to fall on his sword and take the blame even for and he needs to, I mean, what Labour needs to do is two things. First of all, he needs to take the blame for literally everything that pissed people off, but also some of the stuff they're doing, and they've actually delivered already, that's really good, and just they're not shouting about it. Burnham needs to come in and take the credit for it.
Yeah, he should. Absolutely. That's what I'll do.
You need to do that, because personality politics is unfortunately a thing.
Yeah.
So, and they need to realise that. They need to not be egotistical about this. They need to actually just realise they're all on the same team. Because I've said in my 1 o'clock video, I've ended up saying basically, at the moment, it's quite clear all these little factions in Labour cannot work together to decide what to do. Otherwise, they'd have already done it. You wouldn't leave it till after the. Why would you sacrifice all of these councillors, some of whom are doing a bloody good job? Why would you sacrifice them?
SG dropped a super chat in to say yes, but then there could have been a refuck Metro Mayor of Manchester. That would
still be a worthwhile trade-off. But also, I will say this: if that anger is mostly focused on Starmer rather than Labour, then Labour could get a real bounce and a real sense of optimism, and Burnham would heavily campaign for the Labour candidate. And if he could have ridden a crest of a wave of he's already popular. He's the only political leader in the country with net positive popularity, right?
Yeah.
Because he's a proper outsider. Nigel Farage thinks he's outsider. Bollocks, mate. Burnham is the outsider. He's the only leader with net positive poll ratings. And he's also popular, not just broadly across the public, but specifically with the voters that Labour are losing and need to get back. So, no, although, yes, that was a risk, I would say I would take that. I know I don't live in the Northwest, it's easy for me, but I have got a reform. I've got pissing Andrea Jenkins. So, pity me. But I would take that for Labour to have a shot. And it's not even like a couple of months ago, I was umming and ahhing about who might be the best shot for Labour. I'm not anymore. It's Andy Burnham.
Yeah, I know. I remember you saying you didn't like Andy Burnham. You thought he was a bit two-faced.
But no, hate's a strong word.
Utterly pragmatic there, Phil.
But I do dislike the sort of politics he represents. Not in terms of policies, but in terms of, he's just a bit too ego-driven for me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. What matters is the project, right? It's like if you're part of a football team, if your star player is a dickhead, well, you're still banging the goals in.
We got another super chat in from Miss Paula Thomas. Thank you very much. £5. Gorton and Denton would have gone green even with Burnham as candidate. I don't think it would have done.
No,
I'm not going to start a fight with you about it. Miss Paula Thomas, Andy Burnham is really, really popular in Manchester,
and also, Keir Starmer is really, really unpopular in that area as well.
Yeah.
Burnham, he would have attracted the core Labour vote. More of the core Labour vote would have gone out because of a bit of optimism. He would have attracted the anti-Starmer vote because you get a Green MP. What happens to Starmer? Sod all. You get Andy Burnham. What happens to Starmer? He's gone.
Yeah.
So you've got a completely new prime minister. Burnham, I know would have won that. What I don't know is would Labour have won the subsequent mayoral election? I don't know that. because as someone said earlier in the chat, it is the case that it is still first. That Labour are changing the rules on it, but those rules haven't come in place yet to put it back to an alternative vote system. It's still first past the post.
Yeah.
And that is still, when Burnham reckons that if he was to go again now, that he wouldn't get blocked in the NEC. We don't know that. I think GMB Union have suggested that they wouldn't block it this time.
Yeah.
But that reality is still there. But there comes a point where you have to say, are you really going to prioritise the Manchester mayoralty over the literal head of the national government?
Yeah. Tim is asking, if Burnham won a general election, would he be the first proper northerner, i.e. not a southern accent, to win a general election in living memory? Well, Tony Blair was born in Scotland, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And
but you could understand how he sounded a bit
Northern
southern.
English, I guess.
He sort of sounded a bit southern, didn't he?
Yeah. And Gordon Brown just sounded Scottish.
Well, he didn't win a general election.
But yeah, Cameron, May, Thatcher, Major, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss. Liz Truss!
I mean, to be fair, most people, even in the UK,
she didn't win an election, did she?
Do come from the south. It has the bulk of the population, to be fair.
No, why do we have to be fair to the south? They have enough. It's all right, Phil. You don't have to give them the benefit of the doubt. They've got all the money. They've got all the great public.
But we should. I was still going to say we should still have more northern leaders. We should certainly have more Yorkshire leaders.
I was talking to our friend Mike last night on the stream, and I mentioned about something that I'd seen on a TikToker who makes videos about economics, and one of his suggestions was, and he didn't say this was going to be a panacea. It wasn't going to cure all economic problems, but he pointed out there's £3 trillion invested in British pensions. But only 4.4% is invested in British companies. And that's a suggestion for Labour. Make it so it's got to be 50%. That's it. That's the new rule. And suddenly you have 1.5 trillion.
This is old news. They sort of have done, not 50%. I don't know whether that was sensible or not. They have already done that. They just passed, the legislation only just passed right at the end of this session.
Oh, right.
They had to ram it through the Lords. They eventually but this is the problem in terms of why you don't do it, because the Lords block it, right? So, and they already tried to block. Rachel Reeves wanted that, and she couldn't get it through the Lords. They had to water it down a bit, but something very like it has happened in terms of forcing them to have more of it actually invested in Britain.
Okay.
So they did the best they could do and get it through the unelected House of Lords.
Yeah.
And even with what they tried to do, which they already thought was a compromise. So no, Rachel Reeves is fully seized of that. She would want more than 50%. She is fully seized of the idea we've got all this money that needs investing in this country.
Yeah, and it's being invested all over the shop.
But again, I mean, the Lords try. Remember, they all there's one thing that you can now definitely say that Labour as a manifesto promise that they've broken, and it's not their fault. And it was that day one rights on unfair dismissal.
Yeah.
But that was because the Lords refused to budge on it. You can say that overall the Employment Rights Act is stronger than the original bill because they got extra things by way of compensating to make it the whole thing better. But that was nonetheless in the manifesto, and it is a manifesto promise technically broken, but it was broken by the Tories and Lib Dems in the Lords.
Yeah. Brad W, thank you very much for the £5 super chat there. How does the Welsh voting system work? Don't worry, I'll explain.
Yes, very good.
Where's my squeaky tank? Oh, I don't have it on this one.
But yeah, anyway. There's someone mentioning Harold Wilson there. Good. I mean, Wilson, he was, again, I mean, I'm like 50 today, and it was before I was born the last time.
Happy birthday.
But he won his last election before I was even born, so it's not like you can't really call that recent.
Excellent. We also get to trigger the confetti as well. Yay! Yay, confetti! Woo! Liz is very excited about that, so that's all good. So thank you very much, Brad W8102.
I've spelt it confetti though. I don't know what they're doing. They're amateurs.
It's confetti, or it can be Boba Fetti.
Okay.
As in like Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Boba Fetty.
Yeah.
Do you see how that? But yes. Okay, just want to live in memory. Yeah, Wilson. Wilson. Hey, Wilson. Where's the base? Okay, so yeah, I'm looking at the election results so far. I think that Labour had steeled themselves for it. I don't think it's quite as bad as they thought that it could be.
No, it's really bad. Like there were people that were telling me in my streams over the last couple of months, "Oh,
I'm not
Phil,
saying it's not bad. I'm just saying they thought
No,
it
it's
was going to be
catastrophic. It's catastrophic.
Even though they were expecting it to be catastrophic.
Doesn't matter what you expect it to be. Yeah, whether something's good or bad is not based on your expectations, right? It's like, I mean, I know there's the saying, I often use it myself. If you expect a kick in the balls and a slap in the face is a victory, but a slap in the face is not a victory. Just because some people who don't really know what they're doing were suggesting that Labour would literally lose all of their seats and they lose maybe half. That's not a... In 2023, the Conservatives lost about 500-ish seats and they were contesting about 6,000 or something. That was disastrous. That was catastrophic. This is next level.
Yeah.
In fact, the Conservatives, I mean, that's the other thing to point out. The Conservatives are also getting absolutely hammered. This could be the Conservatives' worst ever general election. Actually, it might. No, I don't think it can be as bad as last year. Last year was horrific. But they're in opposition. So the Conservatives for 2 years in a row are taking heavy losses from opposition. So this isn't just a sign. This isn't like Labour trying to say, oh, this always happens now. Yeah, the public do give the sitting government a punch in the nose during local elections almost all the time. Absolutely. But they're doing it to the Conservatives as well. This is the public saying we don't like established politics.
Yeah.
So this is the public saying we want people who are going to change the political rules because we don't think the political rules are in our benefit.
Yeah.
So Labour need to change the political rules. They can't ignore political gravity. There are universal laws, but they can challenge orthodoxy.
There is something else here in that you've got a lot of people who are really into politics vote in the local elections. People who don't really care about politics won't bother. The people who there's a gap between the people who vote in locals and people who vote in the general election. And unfortunately, we find time and time again that the right tend to fill that gap. It's easier to vote for a right-wing party who you've just heard of. When you don't really care about politics, you've heard the name Nigel Farage, I'll vote for his party rather than voting for a party that is led by someone that you absolutely detest, which is the case with Starmer for a lot of people, unfortunately for Starmer. Sean has been a member for 16 months. Well done, Sean. Well-paid jobs are what's missing. None in my area.
Well, sometimes it's just a case of jobs. If you just create jobs in areas where there aren't enough, then those are people spending those pay packets in the local area.
Yeah.
Which creates more business in the local area, which creates more jobs. And then you get more pressure for the workers for those jobs. And that naturally raises the rate of pay when a business needs workers. Yeah. But when you've got a glut of available workers, why would businesses offer a competitive rate when there's people queuing up for jobs?
Yeah.
So, that's why if your government just creates jobs, I say just as if it's just an easy thing to do, but if they can do that, and if you had to target it at industrial towns and coastal towns, because not only are they the places most in need and least likely to get a quick injection of private investment, but also you cut Reform UK off the knees because those are their spawning pools.
Yeah. There was a really funny clip earlier today where a new Refuck councillor celebrated by saying UKIP's here.
Yeah.
Then he realised.
Well, it could have been worse. He could have said Britain first.
Someone said at least he didn't say BNP.
Yeah. Britain first of the this is the thing. They're full of people. This will be what happens to the Greens a bit. I've said this. The Greens need to watch out a little bit because they've expanded so rapidly. There'll be entryists in there. They need to watch out for them, just like in Reform UK. Reform UK try and distance themselves from the likes of like Tommy Robinson, people like that. But Tommy Robinson tell people to vote Reform UK because his people are in there. Those are the candidates. When you suddenly need a shitload of candidates, it's like, if you're in an area where you've got like an established party machine, you just haven't been competitive there, but you've got the people there, they've been there for years. You've got the candidates. That's fine. That'll work out. But if you're in an area where you've never really had much of a local group, it's very vulnerable to being flooded by entries. And this has happened in Labour as well. It's not just smaller parties. But in any area where you're not competitive and you don't have an active group of activists, people suddenly flood in to take over and they'll get the position. So we'll have to see what sort of happens in the next few days in terms of if any paper candidates have to go, yeah, I'm not doing this, just like happened last year. And then a few weeks and months later, you see what comes out.
We've got Attila D6. Thank you very much for the super chat. Starmer should bring back Leveson too. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, it's probably. I mean, he should anyway, but it's probably late. I mean, it needed to be done straight away.
Better late than never, mate. Better late than never. Clem has written. This is a response to that UKIP video. Hello, Cleveland video. It's possibly the best thing that Refuck get in to represent so many local councils ahead of the election. By 2029, the electorate will have had first-hand understanding of just how empty and clueless they really are. Information is power.
Only if they take over the whole council. Like what's happening today is we're getting results that show that Reform UK are winning shitloads of seats, but not councils. And if they don't win power, then they just get a bigger voice to talk shit, and no one expects them to do anything. Because you need a majority to do anything.
The later councils that are getting declared, there's more seats up for grabs in them. So there might be more that they get hold of.
I'm not saying they won't flip any council, but what I mean is, if you look at the scale of the wins, even just so far today, it doesn't necessarily translate into lots of new councils.
Yeah,
it's only in the councils they control where the locals, because we know it's not working on a national level, because they've already been arsing up in places like Kent and so on. Where in Lancashire and Doncaster, basically everywhere, where they won council last week, but it hasn't worked to blunt their national campaign.
Yeah.
So the best hope is at least people there locally can see that they're, cocking it up. But in an area where they win loads, it's worse to both worlds, where they win loads of seats, but they don't win power. They demonstrate momentum towards the next general election, but they don't get asked to deliver.
Paul Fletcher, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. When Reform messes up, Lowe is waiting in the wings. As a reference,
well, maybe not. I don't know. Like, first of all, he's got no media game. I know if you look at the polls, they've got a significant, like even the credible polls, a significant share of that voting intention. But we're in that period where people aren't really thinking about it. Honestly, people's mindset completely changes when there's an actual election coming. Yeah. And I just think if Reform UK and it's 3 years still to go, there's lots of things can happen. I will point out 3 years before the last election, the Tories were riding high. Yeah. Riding high. On the crest of a wave, Boris Johnson was really popular and all the rest of it, and look what happened. Yeah. So lots of things can happen.
The example I always give is May or June 2019, when we had the European elections, the Tories got 8.8% of the vote.
Yeah.
And they went on to win an election. Just like 6 months later, they won a general election. So the way that the BBC have been reporting this and Sky have been like, this is absolutely seismic. It's going to change the world forever. Well, the era of two-party politics is over.
I actually do think it is, though. No, I don't think that. Although, yes, you expect them to embellish it a bit, I would also say the 2019 was a bit of a flash in the pan, because it's not just that the Conservatives won that majority. Labour also came back to second place without even changing their leader. People naturally gravitated towards those. That won't happen next time, not without a big polarizing policy like Brexit, reversing Brexit specifically. So there is this is, as I keep saying, fragmentation of the vote has been happening for a lot of time. It's now reached a tipping point, and we are probably entering a new era of politics. But it's what Labour need to learn from it is they can win the next election. It's not that it's impossible, but they cannot do it like they're doing now.
Yeah.
I have enough faith that Reform UK will not win a majority, just because I do think the that people will tactically vote against them. I think a lot of people do recognise the danger Reform UK presents. And I think that danger is only going to become more apparent as Trump demonstrates that danger in real time in America.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I don't have enough confidence that I think no matter how bad Labour are, it won't happen. So I do want Labour to come back more competitively. And yes, it is true. In a few years' time, it might be that more people start to see some of what Labour have delivered and go, okay, yeah, this is a bit better. But I don't think it's going to be enough on its own.
Yeah.
I think people want more.
Yeah. Labour are saying, wow. Well, first of all, they're expecting only 10 members of the Senate. And Senate even.
And this is out of 90 now, remember. It used to be 60, it's now 90. That would be terrible.
Yeah. And also, the First Minister, Elund Morgan, is set to lose their seat.
Wow.
She's been the Labour leader since the First Minister.
I mean, the thing is, in Wales, they've had a hat trick of problems. So Starmer has obviously infected them with his unpopularity. That will also happen in Scotland. In Wales, they have actually been the incumbents since year dot. So, there is an extent to which during a sort of people thinking about change, well, changing means moving away from Labour in Wales. And then thirdly, ever since Mark Drakeford stepped down, Welsh Labour have been a bit of a disaster area anyway. So they haven't helped themselves. So there's three things that have worked against them really there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Starmer obviously is a big, I mean, he's just infected Labour's popularity everywhere. It's
crazy looking at Scotland because the SNP were incredibly unpopular just 2 years ago, like massively unpopular in Scotland. And it did
but again, it's like, who do people vote for?
Labour's fortunes. And
yeah, I mean, like people thought, there was that optimism about Labour and they don't think that Labour are delivering. And again, a lot of this comes down to, there is a certain timidity on some policy areas, which I can understand after Liz Truss. But it just really, they've not infected people with a sense of optimism. They've infected people with a sense of pessimism about what Labour can deliver. All this stuff before the election where Streeting would say about under-promising and over-delivering. They've done the under-promising to a T. They've just not done the over-delivering. What I expected that to mean is that they would swing to being relentlessly positive in government, and they haven't done.
Yeah. And that's so important, going back to what we said at the top of the show, emotion. Like how you make people feel.
Yeah.
I go back to Gordon Brown. He always made me feel sad. Every time he came on, he just made me feel sad. I just I could be skipping along in the park and then I'll see Gordon Brown. I'll be like, oh. He was like that really miserable priest in Father Ted, and then finally he cheers up, but then he hears Radiohead and gets sad again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There's something about him. And the same as Starmer. He's just... He's not personable.
No.
But the way he talks, he sounds like an automaton. He sounds like a robot. He doesn't talk like a normal
And the thing is as well, do you know the worst thing is?
That's a bit uncanny valley to me.
The thing is, that's an act as well. He was deliberately told to do that and they haven't changed it. Like, it's a bit of an act. He's different in real life. It's like Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson with his, that's all an act. Yeah, that's not him. That's not Alexander Johnson as he is with his friends and everything. That is Boris Johnson, the character. Keir Starmer's putting on another one. He was going to be the technic, and it worked for a bit. I'm not saying it was a bad idea. It's just that they need, as soon as it stopped working, they needed to pivot, and they haven't pivoted. They haven't ever pivoted.
Sean, thank you for the £2 super chat. Labour could do a countdown to energy independence. Yeah. Why not? Why not just do something fun so people get behind?
Well, just
excite people.
They need to say something that's going to get a reaction. It's like when I say I think Reform UK is going to ruin Welsh politics, even without being in power, because they'll say things that get reactions from others. Labour need to do the same thing. Say a thing that the mainstream media and even social media cannot not report on, because they will feel the need to push back on it.
Yeah.
And all they're doing at the moment is with the EU. But like, even then, when the Telegraph are like talking about, he's going to have us back in the EU, it's like, but the people who want that are just thinking, well, I'm not seeing it.
So you're not winning either side, are you? You're not
No,
winning the people who want it because they're not seeing it, and you're not winning the people who don't want it because obviously they don't want it.
and there's not that many of them anyway. It's not worth chasing after the ones who don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ernie Burns is saying my Roger Irrelevant take. Yeah, he looks and sounds well. I don't know what Roger Irrelevant sounds like. He's a cartoon character from the Viz, but I imagine he sounds a lot like the way Starmer speaks.
But either way, he's completely blown it because, as you say, like polling, like a year ago, it was like. I mean, I noticed there was someone from the Greens saying, "Oh, people are just disappointed in Labour," and it's like, well, no, they're not. Disappointment you can work with. Disappointment you could say, but once they see, all this stuff coming online, it'll be better. It's like you can't say that anymore because people aren't disappointed; they're angry.
Yeah, it's very true.
People are pissed off.
Yeah, we're getting it. Gabby wants to know if you're going out for a nice meal tonight.
So,
did you put a bet on?
I've decided we're going to have takeaway instead. We'll watch a film.
Did you put a bet on?
On what?
On this election? Did you put a
No,
bet?
why would I do that?
Because you usually put a bet on the election.
No, I don't. I put bets on some things where I think there's a reason. Like, it's totally, it's a first past the post election, the local elections especially, are first past the post elections where there's massive change in voting behaviour. Although, the only thing you could predict is Labour and the Conservatives are both getting their pants pulled down. That's all you could predict about this.
Yeah. Well, you could go for how many seats Labour are going to lose.
I have no idea.
They're on 378 at the moment.
I've honestly no idea.
And
the thing is, I mean, it's not even proportional because, like, if it were proportional, I would take this because they'd end up with less than 1,000 lost. But I think it's going to be more because, again, the first lots to get reported on are not necessarily representative of the ones that will be reported on last. So we're going to have to wait till tomorrow, really. Yeah. We may have a much better picture by tonight, but tomorrow, really, probably. And there'll still be the odd one pissing about on Sunday, but then it'll be just far too few to make any difference.
Yeah. Well, we're not really changed on the situation in Scotland. Still SNP on 6, up 1. Liberal Democrats are on 1, and they've lost 1. They lost it to the SNP.
Yeah, there's next to none been reported on there. So
and
Scotland, we can't even look at Scotland. We can't look at Wales, really.
Wales is nowhere to be seen at the moment.
And there's still too few, even in England. What we can see is, all we can see is confirmation of what was predicted anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is what I was saying before about the Labour people looking at it. And I know you say it's still a disaster, but they're looking at it like this could be, totally catastrophic. Yeah. And they'll be like,
It is catastrophic. Even losing 500 would be catastrophic. But you would take 500 with just how low expectations were. Sean's just said something there to it. It says, where's all these battery factories? Well, this is the point I would make about why the government should just create jobs in certain areas. Because exactly where I'll tell you where the battery factories are. You get a company that says, oh, we're going to build these things here. And then they change their mind or something like that and it takes years as well. So the government can hail, or it's like, this company has announced this investment here. It's going to create this many jobs. Yeah, in a few years' time, if they go through with it, which they might not. Yeah. Whereas if the government just create jobs, it's straight away. Yeah. Okay, they have to work out how it's going to work. Okay, it might take a year realistically, but they could do that straight away.
Yeah.
Just create jobs, do Roosevelt's New Deal thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they tapped into the phrase, didn't they? Labour had its New Deal for working people. And, there's a lot of good stuff in it, but tap into the original New Deal, create jobs in areas that desperately need them.
Well, just to give people an idea of, like, I know you're saying that the situation is different now down on the ground because of the split with the Greens and refuck. But looking at the Tories, I mentioned the 2019 European elections, looking at the local elections in 2019, the Tories lost 1,330 councillors and still went on to win an election 6 months later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the pundits who were saying, this is it, writing on the wall, Labour are over. I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, but that's just how people are. But I mean, I don't do that. I don't try to either over or under hype anything. And I will still say that I think people are not just dissatisfied with Labour or the Conservatives. I think there's a fundamental dissatisfaction with politics as it is being done at the moment.
Yeah.
It's a it's a fundamental dissatisfaction with the way that people just don't feel politics is serving their interests. And if we want to stop the far right, Labour are the only party that can do that.
Yeah.
And ultimately what they need is to demonstrate that they're ripping up the rule book.
Yeah.
And they can't do that with Starmer.
Yeah. Yeah. They need a fresh start. They need a fresh start, and they need to be able to say, okay, you know, that shit that we did, that was all Keir Starmer's fault. We're doing
he's basically
this is now.
He's making every mistake that Rishi Sunak made. That's what's frustrating about this. He's doing everything that Rishi Sunak did wrong. And at the time, I blamed Rishi Sunak's advisors because Rishi Sunak, again, to be fair to him, and I don't like being fair to him because he was literally the person who caused, or one of the people who caused the banking crash. And also, he's clearly only in Parliament to enrich himself. I didn't see him do anything. The only thing I saw him do that I think he genuinely believed in, that he thought was like for the good of the country, was, you know, trying to lean into sort of tech bro stuff, right? I thought that was genuine on his part. But then what did he do? He invited Space Karen over here, whom I may now have to call Space Nonce because France are trying to charge him with child sex abuses.
Because of Grok.
I
hope they get him.
So he might actually be Space Nonce now.
That'll be interesting because they bring charges against him. He won't be able to go to any country that's got a deal with France to extradite.
So this is my point. I'm going to do a video on this for tomorrow. My point is basically going to be, they'll not get him, but it's a good way of stopping him coming to your country.
Yeah. Oh, Darren's on. Hey, Darren, how you doing, mate? I think Darren's doing a show later this afternoon, so please tune in to Darren's show. If you've not watched it, it's Daily Blase 4660. If you click on his name, you'll be able to join his channel. Hopefully you'll get to see Darren in a bit. Roger Devine said he introduced the smoking age limit, so now no one born after 2009 can get cigarettes.
Okay. You could probably find a couple of small ones. Yes. It wasn't a big thing though, was it? No. Like that wasn't going to win you any votes. Who was that going to win votes from? Right. So
they should just they need to do razzle dazzle stuff that captures people's imagination.
Yes.
At the moment, their biggest problem out of all the problems they've got, let's not talk about policy in particular, it is just failing catastrophically to capture the public's imagination.
There's no hype. It's like they think, well, they've sort of said it. They think hype is a dirty word.
Yeah.
Now, the last election, they didn't need hype to win. So that's fine. Why hype stuff up? Because then you can only disappoint. But now that they're in government, hype the shit out of everything. What's the worst that can happen? They already hate you. It's not like you can. The only thing they can do on policy terms to screw things up more is do something that does inflict a Liz Truss scenario. So don't do that. I can understand them still being a bit cagey on some policies, but in terms of the rhetoric, there is literally no way they can make this worse.
Yeah. How could it be worse? Jehovah.
He could literally come out. Exactly, yeah. He could come out and effing blind at Farage, call him an effing C, and it couldn't make anything worse. It actually couldn't. So just give it, if you want a last chance, if you want a last attempt to turn Starmer back in the right direction, just tell him to drop a few F-bombs at least.
Actually show some emotion.
And
prove that he's human. Prove that he's human. Because, you know, I hate Trump. I hate Farage, but they prove they're human all the time. I mean, awful humans, but they come across as
But this is what you do.
People.
Like Trump, look at Trump. He comes out and he's quite clear about these tribal lines, and he says, these are the people on my side. I'm going to talk great things about them, even as I'm shafting them. These are the people who are no use to me. They're never going to vote for me because I'm just going to call them all arseholes all the time. Assholes. And he does that. And like with the media, he takes no shit from the media, even when the media is actually reporting the truth. Fake news. Why are you pushing this fake news? Why are you a bastard? That's what he basically says to
Why
their
are
face.
You a bastard?
Why doesn't Keir Starmer say that to Tory Kunsberg? Why are you a bastard? Why are you lying? Why are you saying, turn it back up? What is the harm? turn it back on them. You are being paid public money. You are basically a public servant and you are misinforming the public. You're deliberately lying. One of my viewers said earlier, I'm going to read it out because it's quite good, because Angela Rayner could do this exactly like this. They said, because after, the fact that the media are not hammering Nigel Farage over the Clacton House thing, the 17 times he hadn't reported his things properly, the 5 million quid he hid, right? He said this is the Obi Andy Kenobi, if they want the plug. Personally, I'd like to see Angela Rayner come back and start every interview saying you all clearly don't care about tax avoidance, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Something, I won't say those words, but something like that. Yeah. You clearly don't care about this, or you'd be asking Nigel Farage questions. Yeah. You don't care. You're just full of shit. And then ask them, why are you full of shit? Is it because you're actually a paid advocate for the Tory party? In which case, why are you working for the BBC? Go on the attack. If they're going to ruin your interview anyway and not let you get your talking points across, you make them wish they'd never invited you on. Go on the attack. Yeah. Learn whose side you're on. Now, I'm not about divisive. I hate it. I hate this idea. I'd much prefer a government that can bring people together. But I just see increasingly people don't want to be brought together. People feel that the country is a battleground and they just want to know what side you're on.
Yeah.
So you can't say, well, we all should be on the same side. That's lovely. Yeah. It ain't working.
But it's not realistic.
Not working.
All right, Phil. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. So there's the election results. I'll just update them one last time. They're on the screen. Refucker off. They've improved their numbers by 572. And Labour have lost 391 seats so far. So they are on target for losing 1,000 seats, which is, it's pretty bad. But like I say, this happened to the Tories in May of 2019, and later that same year, with a new leader, they won the election.
But I am also going to say at that time, first of all, there wasn't really anyone else in it. The Lib Dems ran a terrible campaign with Swinson.
Yeah.
The Brexit Party whoever their donors were, forced Nigel Farage to cancel all the candidates in quite a lot of key seats.
Yeah.
Whereas both Labour and the Conservative are having their votes harvested.
Yeah.
Harvested.
Yeah.
Yes, things can change in the next 3 years, and I bloody well hope they do. But they cannot just plod on like now and just expect it to all. The Conservatives didn't. They changed the leader.
Yeah. So is it your birthday today?
Yes.
Oh, happy birthday, mate. Well done. You've got the same birthday as Sir David Attenborough.
So I gathered, yes.
That's pretty cool.
Also, apparently World Donkey Day today.
What?
World Donkey Day.
Well, listen, mate, you have a great evening. Have a great weekend. Thank you for coming on your birthday. It's awesome. And I think didn't we do an agenda last time on my birthday? I can't remember. Oh no, because that was a Friday and it would have been on the Saturday. Doesn't matter. Anyway, thanks very much everyone for watching. Kudos to One Angry Pagan who has been with us non-stop since 10 o'clock last night. So well done. I had a kip. I went off and had a kip. Poor old One Angry Pagan was stuck here watching. Who was it? Sahari? Was it? Who was it that you were stuck watching all night? Sahari. Yeah, it was Sahari. For 4 hours. I shouldn't laugh.
Well, badgers are nocturnal, aren't they? Mostly.
Yeah, that's true. They are nocturnal creatures.
People tend not to treat them very well when they come
Anyway, Pagan, go get your head down. If everyone wants to tune in to watch Darren later, that'd be boss. Obviously, Aid is doing his show at 7:30 tonight. Are you doing a show tomorrow, Phil, at 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, so check out Phil's live show
have some
at 7
results
o'clock.
then.
Yeah, we might actually have some results. Depending on how this goes, if we've got some good solid results tonight, I will be doing a show tonight. It won't be a Friday night social, but we'll be doing a little thing to talk about the election results. So if you want to join us for that, please do us a favour. Give us a like on the way out. And also, if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you are subscribed, really important, hit the bell notification icon. So when we do a special show like we did last night from 10 o'clock onwards, you will get a notification, a ping in your pocket to let you know. I'm going to leave the last word to... I've lost it now. Oh, I hate it when this happens. You know when you're like, I'll say this as the last thing, and then you lose the actual thing. There you go. Last word is going to go to Tommy Lee Cadden, who says, space nonce. just makes me think of that Brass Eye sketch where they accidentally sent that nonce into space with the kid on the rocket. That was the one thing we didn't want to happen. Anyway, till next time, thank you for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye. Woo!